My name is Jennifer Evans. I'm in the history department here at Carleton, and I am a historian. I am a specific kind of historian. I'm a historian of Germany, but my areas of interest, areas of research are social and cultural, and I am especially trained in the history of sexuality. My own research is in queer and trans history. So when I was also glued to my various computer screens, like many of us on Sunday, watching the results come in and talking with friends and colleagues about their impressions, their response to what they were seeing. This was a moment, I think we can all agree, we've lived through something quite historic, even though we're still in the midst of it, trying to make sense of it. What I want to offer you is a little bit of the view from some of the areas where I occupy. And that would be thinking a little bit about center-left discussions, debates around social cultural issues, and how those took shape, especially for the younger generation that didn't always see themselves represented in the majority parties. So leading up to the election, there was very much in and I can maybe speak more to my expertise in Berlin as someone who's lived in Berlin and done research in Berlin. There was very much the sense that younger people were not feeling that their concerns were being heard or acted upon, and this took a number of different shapes. And one, most especially in the last few years, was around something as bread and butter as the rising rent prices in apartments. And so there was a lot of community level organizing on the left, especially to try and address these kinds of social inequalities that younger folks felt were really just not being heard. And this was one of the areas where the left party Die Linke was actually able to really make some gains in this election especially, both in two districts in Berlin, in Neukölln and in Lichtenberg, two West German, West Berlin districts, it should be said, which takes the influence of Die Linke out of its traditional sort of moorings in the East. So this is a significant thing, and it's a significant change. And it happened within a context both of, as I said, rising cost of living increases, a slowing market economy, but then also, right, like the ambassador said, the moment in which we're living, a moment of great unrest and disaffection. In the district of Neukölln, we see the Die Linke party candidate Ferhat Kocak winning in the direct mandate. And he is somebody who himself had experienced far-right violence as a Kurdish man, an immigrant. And he had been an activist in his neighborhood around police violence, around far-right violence, and around some of these issues of social inequality. When we look at the gains made by Die Linke, we have to think about people like him and understand that on the one hand, he might appear to be outside of the norms, outside of the center, but that when we think about the appeal of Die Linke to the younger generation, it is also very complicated in the sense that there are a number of different positions represented in Die Linke party, from running the gamut from those who would have absolutely no involvement in arms support of Ukraine and Israel, and those that have a very close relationship to Israel in the form of one of the anti-Semitism czars. So it's important to understand when we look at the gains of that particular party that it's reflecting a constituency that is very broad-based and that has a variety of different political positions. Some very angry at what they've seen these last months in terms of the policing of dissent, and others who would say that we need to maintain ties, strengthen ties, and embolden citizens to speak out more in favor of, in this case, of Israel. So it's a very complicated and interesting moment to watch. Another area that I think would be really interesting, and one that I know I'm very nervous about, and if I was completely honest, I'm actually quite frightened about, and that is the rhetoric leading up to the election on the part of the CDU around gender and trans issues. Aside from calling the left, all sorts of names in the day before the election, which was, I thought, very unhelpful as things go. But when we think about the fact that the soon-to-be governing party has taken a very explicit stance in the feuilleton and in public talks against the gender stanchion, against gender policies, against the trans self-ID law, which came into power in the fall, which allows trans folks to change their identification without having to subject themselves to psychological testing. That these are very big issues, so big that different members of the queer and trans community in the days leading up to the election, like Nora Eckert, were very public in raising the stakes around what this would mean. And it will be interesting to see how the CDU and the SPD work together around this issue, considering that the SPD Green Party was behind the self-ID law. So these are very, very concerning issues, and they're bigger than just Germany, of course, because the anti-gender and anti-trans issues steamroller that we're seeing that maybe began in Hungary, made its way through Poland, is now finding its way into the newspapers in Germany at least, if not necessarily into government, and which we hear, of course, every day, right now, when we turn on the news in terms of the US. It shows us that there is a populist playbook that is being played, and the test will be now to see how Germany tackles this in the days to come, especially given the fact that there has been so much power placed on this rhetoric in the electioneering. And then the question will be, how does this then play in actual government? And those lessons will be important for us as Canadians, because as we know, we're staring down an election in the fall as well, where these questions are, of course, at our door too. So I'm keenly interested to see how Germany wrestles with these. And I'm also going to be taking notes, I think like all of us probably should be, for our own context as well. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll pass things to you.